Hi guys. Today I'm going to be doing my August wrap up. August wasn't my best reading month ever. I only read 13 books, and before anyone starts to comment, oh, 13 books is a lot, blah blah blah. I typically read more than 13 books. I typically read 20 to 35. I just have time. I just have a lot of time. I love reading. It's all I do. I hate that I have to preface this in all of my videos, but I get so many, like literally whenever I post wrap-ups, the only comments are, oh my gosh, like that amount is still a lot, and oh my gosh, like I wish I could read that much, blah 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 blah. I get it. I understand. But this is about me, guys. This is about me. But yeah, basically I only read 13 books this month. I'm not gonna do them how I did my last video when I put them in like categories and stuff like that, because I didn't read that much this month, so it's no point to put them in categories. But I'm just gonna go based off the stack here. So the first book I have is My Lovely Wife, which I didn't rate on Goodreads, but I'm thinking I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. But it's not the book's fault. The book is basically about this husband and his wife. It's a thriller who are murdering people together, and they're basically only going after girls, which did make me feel a bit uncomfortable. And the husband was a little weird, but I'm only getting it 2 out of 5 stars because I knew what happened in the end, and I think that the thriller didn't stand up on itself. You like knew what happened in the end, which I mean most thrillers are. So I only knew what happened in the end because I watched Hannah's video and the ending sounded great. So I was like, okay, great, let me give this book a try. But I already knew it was gonna happen. So the thriller didn't stand up on its own, like despite knowing what the thriller was. Like I feel like I always say like, oh, well, my favorite thing in a thriller is the plot twist, but I feel like the plot twists are good, but if the book can't survive on its own, is it really a good book? Then the next book I have is No Offense, which I had a lot of 2 stars this month, I'm not gonna lie. So this one was this romance, and it was about this girl who's a teacher and this guy who's a cop. They live on this island, which is why I requested it. I requested this after ARC, but I got the final copy from Avon Books. I love Avon Books, favorite romance publishing company. But yeah, so Avon Books sent me this, and I personally didn't like this book because I feel like this book read like very 2013. It was by Meg Cabot, the same author who wrote Princess Diaries and Avalon High. And so when I was reading this book just didn't feel like the kind of romances I was reading, like modern romances. And the main character was very like boring. I have a whole rant review on Goodreads, by the way. But the main character, she was just so annoying. Well, she was just so boring, and her only personality trait was reading. And personally, I feel like it's really cheap when authors make their favorite characters love reading. Like, I understand, like, we all love reading, but I think that it's cheap because it's an easy way for authors to get you to fall in love with a character instead of organically trying to make you fall in love with the characters just because, like, oh, the characters, like, this character is so amazing, blah blah blah. Like, literally, like, oh, this character loves reading, me too, I love her. Like, no, I'm gonna need a little bit more than that, honey. I didn't like the cop because I felt like he was very misogynistic, and I can't exactly point out what it was about him that was misogynistic, but he was just always like, oh, I'm a manly man, I need to do this. Oh, my daughter, she can't be out here wearing this when, you know, my daughter can't be out here wearing this when she comes to my office, and blah blah blah. And I don't know, he was just misogynistic, okay? It was just really, I just didn't like it. And another reason why I didn't like it, and I just felt like the romance wasn't convincing. Like, her falling for him was convincing because you got to see when she fell for him, but him falling for her was like, oh, this woman is so beautiful. Like, that's it. I was just really just annoyed with this romance, and I didn't care about the characters. So next book I have is The Black Kids, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars, period. So this book is about this black girl who grows up rich, and she grows up with these white friends, and then one day something happens, like police brutality issue happens, and her world basically turns upside down because her sister is like basically not with the, I don't know, because the book tries to make it seem like her sister like gets involved in a riots, and so her family like has to, but it's really not the case. It's basically just her learning that she is black, and the things that happen in this book aren't acceptable. I literally love this book from the moment I picked it up. As you can see, I have so many tabs. Like, literally, I do not tab books when I read them for the first time. When I read this book, I had to tab it. There were so many things that made me angry. Like, literally, one of her friends with white kept saying the N-word to her, and her other friend was like, oh, you shouldn't say that around her. And like I like the romance in this book. It was like a little bit of a love triangle, and the romance was like really really good, and I thought it was so cute. And the main character, I feel like wasn't, I feel like the main character was very bland, but I feel like that's the kind of thing that we needed. Like she didn't really stick up for herself a lot, and she didn't really, I don't know, she didn't really do anything. Like her friends would do stuff that really made me annoyed, but I just really love the book. I feel like when I don't read a lot within a month, I have nothing to say about the books, but then when I read a lot in the books, I have a lot to say within a month. I don't know. Next book I have is from Blood and Ash, and this book I gave a 5 out of 5 stars. This is a thick book. I read majority of this book in one night. I read like 500 pages in one night. Like that's how much I was feeling this book, y'all. So this book is basically a fantasy romance. It's heavy on the romance, guys. If you are a romance lover and you want to get into fantasy, or you're a romance lover and you love fantasy but you want majority romance and like a little bit of fantasy, this is your book. Basically this book is about this girl who is a maiden, and it's kind of like this special girl who is made to ascend. And when you ascend, it basically means that you get to become immortal. And she is orphaned, and she lives with the Dutch and Duchess, or the king and the queen, and she basically has to like be hidden her whole life. And so she ends up going into like this bar kind of thing, and I forget what they call it. It's a name for it. Like it's a name that's used to this day. Like it's a modern name. I'm just an idiot and forgot what they called it. But yeah, she goes into like this bar kind of thing, and she ends up running into this guy that's like her player, and he ends up becoming her bodyguard. So it's like bodyguard romance, and it's kind of like, it's not enemies to lovers, but it's banter. Like he wants her but she don't want him, so there's banter. And I just really really love this book. I like the fantasy aspects, like it was paranormal, but I really 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 love the romance. And I actually really do like the main character. She has like this dagger that she takes with her, and I just think she's such a baddie. Like her name is Poppy. She's such a baddie, and the main character name is Hawk. And I love it, and I can't wait to read the second book. The second book did come out already. It just came out, so I can't wait to read this soon. The next book I read was Joyland by Stephen King, and I gave this book 2 out of 5 stars. I meant it when I said I have a lot of 2-star reads, because this isn't the only 2-star read I read this month now. Yeah, this one was 2 out of 5 stars. I just thought it was like boring, and the book kind of led me astray, because my favorite movie of all time, but one of my favorite movies of all time, is Adventureland. And Adventureland is basically about this guy who goes off to college, and he's working at this amusement park, and he ends up falling in love with this girl, and she's like messing around with this guy who's married. That is Adventureland. This book, Joyland, when I read the synopsis, it reminded me a lot of Adventureland, but with the thriller aspect. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll check it out. The thriller aspect is non-existent. The thriller aspect is so poo-poo. I did not enjoy it. I thought that the main characters were bland. I thought that the thriller was boring, and I don't think it was executed well, because it wasn't like a build-up throughout the story. It was like him talking about working there, which I didn't mind him talking about working at the amusement park, because I really enjoyed learning about the amusement park. Like I really love the idea of someone working at an amusement park, so I didn't mind that. But it was just the fact that like there was no like hint of like the thriller in it. It was literally just a book about a boy who worked at an amusement park, and oh yeah, someone dies at the end. Like I was like, okay. But like I said, I really did enjoy the aspect of the amusement park, but I think that the book was such a letdown. And he ends up getting with a MILF, which, I mean, I do what you want, I guess, because he was graduating from high school. It was just such a weird romance. It just happened out of nowhere, and I was like, okay. I don't know. It's not gonna stop me from reading Stephen King books. Like I have so many Stephen King books that I need to get through, but I don't think I'll be reading any more of his hard case crimes, which he only has one more. I'm not reading that. The next book I read was Well Met, and I actually love this book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. This book is about this girl who is moved in with her sister, who is, I want to say crippled, but she's crippled, and she's taking care of her sister's daughter, who's like around the same age as the main character. Not around, but you know, she's not like 4 or 5. This girl is like in high school, so she's helping take care of her sister, and she's there for the summer. And so I guess to distract her niece and like to keep her niece busy and like keep her out of her mom's way, she takes her to work at this Renaissance fair. And so they work at this Renaissance fair, and the main guy is just such an ass to her, and so she ends up like forming this hatred towards him. And I really liked it, and I liked the aspect of the Renaissance fair. Like it was so good, especially because they all have like this fake character, and so her fake character was dating his fake character, the main guy that she doesn't like. But then once they were out of character, he would just go back to being mean to her. and I ate it up. But it wasn't enemies to lovers. It wasn't hate to love, because I feel like in order to be enemies to lovers or hate to love, both of you have to hate each other. And she didn't like him because he was mean, rightfully so. But he not like he didn't like her. He was just mean to her. And so but I also feel like the reason why she didn't like him wasn't really like, I mean, you not liking someone because they're mean is a valid reason, but it went away really soon. And the reason why I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars, did I say 4 or 4.5? I don't know, child. Good reason to have to add them half stars on. I know Bookslog has it now, so I'm really excited to put that into use, because I literally will be like, oh, I gave this book 4.5 out of 5 stars, and then next thing you know, I forget, because Goodreads doesn't let you have half star ratings. But yeah, the reason why I gave this like 4.5 out of 5 stars is because like the romance at the end, they ended up getting together like 60% through the book, and I hated that because I just felt like it was really boring. And then right after they got together, it was like that typical scene where the main character and the guy like hate each other, where they argue, and then they like get back together within the same 10 pages. But it does have a good grand gesture, and I love grand gestures in books, so I ate it up. It was good to me. I have well played, and I can't wait to read that. The next 2 books I read were, you know, romance books, but they were like the main book in the sequel. So I read The Bride Test and The Kiss Quotient. The Bride Test I gave 4 stars. The Kiss Quotient I gave 5 stars. I love these books. So The Bride Test is about this girl, and she is she's on the spectrum, and she's the autistic spectrum, and she's like looking for someone to basically teach her how to have sex. So she hires this escort, and they end up like not fake dating, but he's like teaching her how to date, I guess. But like now not being her boyfriend, but like when they meet his family, they're like, oh, this is my girlfriend. So they're fake dating, but they're not fake dating. But it's fake dating to me because I love fake dating. So they like fake date, and I just think that it's so cute. And a lot of people say that the rep for this isn't good, which I don't understand, because the author is on the spectrum. So it's not like it was someone who's not on the spectrum. Like if I were to write the book, like the author's on a spectrum. So I feel like obviously if you're on the spectrum and you judge the book, that's fine. But if you're not on the spectrum and you're like, oh, the rep in this book isn't good, you're an asshole, because you wouldn't know. But I just wanted to dead that, because I heard that people were saying that, and I'm like, obviously if you're on the spectrum, like I stated, you have all rights to judge this book. Like if you want to give the book 2 stars, you can. I mean, so you can do what you want, but I'm saying if you're not on the spectrum and you're judging this book and saying that the representation is bad, rather you know people who are on the spectrum or not, you're not on the spectrum, so it doesn't matter. The Bride Test, which I love. The Bride Test, I loved Kai so much. It was very hard for him to admit his, okay, I'm jumping ahead. So basically this one is about Kai, who's the cousin of the main male character, and his mom goes to Vietnam to get this girl to marry him because he's on the spectrum, and the mom is like, I want him to have a wife. And so they kind of like fake date, I guess, too. It's like the author writes a weird way of them to fake date, but I thought I saw a bug. The author writes like a weird way of them fake dating, but it like works out because technically they are fake dating, but technically they're not. But yeah, I love this book. I loved Kai so much. He was just so cute, and he was like always emotionally unavailable, and the smut scenes were good. And I just thought that their relationship was really, really good, because the main character, May, she was like, I don't know, because I feel like I hate when characters in books cry, when they cry a lot, but like she would cry and she'd be like, let me suck it up and let me go tell him off. Like I loved it because like me. So I think that's why I liked it. Like I seen a little bit of me and her, a little bit, not a lot obviously, but like she would be like crying, he would do something to make her mad, and she would just be like stubborn, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is me. That's why I ate it up, to be honest. But I'm very excited for the Heart Principle. I don't know if the Heart Principle can meet this one, but it's about Quan, Kai's brother, which I love Quan, so I'm very excited to read about him. I can't wait. The last physical book I have is Such a Fun Age, which everyone says that this book is about this. Her boss calls her in on a night at the club, and she's like, hey, can you take the baby out somewhere? The window broke in and I want to distract her. So she takes her, the main character takes the baby out to the grocery store, and they accuse her of kidnapping the baby. That's not what this book is about. That happens in the first chapter. Like, all of that happens in the first chapter. This book is about performative activism. This book follows 3 characters. It follows 2 characters, but it technically follows 3 characters. 2 of them are white, 1 of them is black. And it's about how the black main character is just always used as something to help the other characters get along in life, or as fetishized. And it's just so much more than being about this girl who stopped at who is basically accused of something at a grocery store, because that plays little to nothing in the actual plot. It's about performative activism. I really liked it. I gave it 4 to 5 stars because not only was this a good book, it was a good messy book. And y'all know I love messiness. And so it was messy. Now on to books that I read. These are on the books that I read ebook. I don't think I gave any of them. Okay, so the first book I read was A Cut So Deep, and this book was basically about this girl. She's 18, her mom is getting married, so she ends up going to live with the family of the guy that her mom marries, and her mom ends up going out on vacation, and she, like, basically it's about like a stepbrother romance, like, yeah. And so I didn't really like this book because it had like a lot of self-harm, and self-harm, it can be a trigger for me, but it also can't be. Like, I feel like if it's written well, it can't be a trigger for me, but if it's written a way to like make the character seem edgy and like it felt like it was written for the main guy to fetishize her and to romanticize it. When you have a character self-harm in romance, mostly they use it so like the guy can discover she's self-harming and be like, you shouldn't do that anymore, like, I'm gonna watch you now, to care more, I guess. But it's always in a romanticized way, and as someone who used to self-harm, it just felt like it was romanticized and to be like cute. Anyways, my camera overheated, so I'm just gonna move on to the next book because so the next book I read was this book called Ecstasy. This was the worst and the best dark romance book I've ever read in my life, okay? If you want a book that will mentally scar you, if you want a book that has you like, what the heck was that ending? So basically, this book is about a hot mess. This is about this girl and this 2 best friends who are all in college. So the girl is a drug addict, and the 2 guys who are roommates, one of them is her ex-boyfriend who she currently is liking, and then the other is her roommate who likes her. So basically the book starts off at this party that they're throwing, and the boyfriend finds out that, we're gonna call him the boyfriend, okay? The boyfriend finds out that the main girl character cheated on him before the book starts. It's something that you find out within the book, like, pretty fast. So he finds out that she cheated on him, so he's literally he's so drunk that he's literally an ass. Like, he's trying to get her drunker, he tried to drown her, he flashed her boobies to everyone. Wow, right? They end the book, almost have a threesome with the roommate. Okay, so then the book goes on, and the roommate is like, oh, I forgot to mention that when they wake up, it doesn't happen. It kind of happened, but it doesn't. So when they wake up, there is a dead girl in the pool. The heck? And then they're all like, oh, this has happened before. And you're like, whoa, okay, what do y'all be doing? So the roommate is trying to get with the main girl without the main guy knowing, and it's just so crazy because like he's trying to like sneak around with her, and she just wants the drugs, honey. Like, she cares about the guy, but she just wants like the drugs. And the roommate is so insane. He has like this weird kink of like getting off on her almost dying. Like, there's a scene in the pool where they're literally like getting it on, and he like is drowning her while they're getting it on, and like he literally gets like this rush. I guess the book could be about basically like you getting this high from doing something. You get this ecstasy feeling and you have it one time, so you try to recreate it like a bunch, I guess. So maybe that was the point of the book, but the ending of the book was crazy. It went nowhere that I thought a dark romance would ever go, shockingly. The next book I read was The Invisible Life of Addie, which I gave 2 out of 5 stars. Now this one, the book wasn't bad. It was to be petty. I'm gonna do a rant review when the book comes out, but to say more or less, if you are going into this book thinking it is a story about the devil and this main girl, like the devil chasing this main girl to fall in love with her, and it has like a big romance or anything like that, don't read this book. V. Schwab does not know how to write romance. I've came across that conclusion. I've read a lot of V. Schwab books. If you go into this book and not caring about the romance, I think you'll like it. I actually really did like the writing for this book. I really liked the plot. I really liked a lot of things about the book. The book is basically about this girl named Addie LaRue, and she makes a deal with the devil to live forever. The other half of the deal is that everyone will forget her until one day a guy actually remembers her. And so that idea was pretty cool, but I think that the love interest was very, very boring. And then I went into the book thinking I was going to expect a romance for them, because it's never said in like the synopsis, but it's kind of like what it was advertised with. Rather, it was advertised by Victoria or the publishers. I can't really remember, but I do know it was advertised as like a love story, or even the way that it's like she being V. Schwab has talked about the book, it seemed like the romance is going to be between like the devil, which he's never called the devil. Actually, he's called the darkness. It really isn't. And also, I didn't really like Addie LaRue because I noticed that V.E. Schwab makes her main characters not like other girls, and she does it a lot. And I feel like it's like in a self-inserty way, because I mean, if you know V.E. Schwab, you know she's not like other girls, so she kind of writes her main characters to be like that, and it's really annoying after a while. And I feel like Addie LaRue was just very bland, and I did enjoy the story of like what actually got her to want to live forever. And the book talks about gods a lot, and even showing like people important to her forgetting about her, and just how she has to live forever, and like how she goes on about life until like one day this guy literally remembers her. Like she literally tried to rob him, and she comes in the next day to sell him the thing that she robbed him of, and he's like, bitch, you were here yesterday. And she's like, I mean, I think that the book was a pretty good book. It was like a 3-star book, but I was just so petty because I was expecting a romance that I didn't get. So, it was just me being petty, to be honest. But I really wanted that romance, okay? So I feel like it really disappointed. I keep saying like I was being petty, but I'm actually really disappointed. Like, I really, really wanted that romance to happen. My personal opinion. So I feel like if you like, her writing style is really, really good in this book, and the plot of the story is really good. So if you don't care about romance, then you'll be perfectly fine. Like, this isn't me like discouraging people from reading it. I think if you don't care about any of the things that I mentioned, then you'll be totally fine. Like, it's a good book, actually. Like, I understand. I'm not gonna be like, I don't understand why people gave this book like 5 stars. Like, I don't understand why this book is so hyped. I would 100% understand why this book was so hyped. Like, I understand why people love it. It makes sense to me. It's just that I personally didn't like it because I felt led astray, bamboozled, hoodwinked. The last book that I read for the month in general is Twilight, and you guys are probably like, what the hell? I read it for a video, and no, it is not a video to read Midnight Sun. So don't be expecting that. I'm only reading Twilight. I only will ever read Twilight. I don't plan on continuing the series. I don't want anything to do with Twilight after the video that I do and me reading this book. I don't want to talk about it. It was 3 stars, and I wanted to give it 2 stars, but I was like, okay, Marina, now you're just being petty. And I don't want to be petty for all the books that I read 2 stars, but it's a decent book. I actually gave this book 3 stars instead of 2 stars because I really liked Bella in this book versus in the movies. Like, I feel like in this book she had more of a personality. You were inside of her head, so you got to see how she thought, versus in the movie she kept doing that weird breathing thing that always irritated me. Even as a kid, I could not stand the weird breathing thing she did in the movie. But I mean, in this book she has more of a brain. She thinks a lot. She's very like sarcastic. She's kind of funny a little bit. So it's like, I didn't mind this book. It wasn't like the worst thing I ever read. But so that's it for this video. I hope that you liked it. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.